Hello, welcome to our panel about PMF for politics. I think most people here in this room, or probably also at this event, are here for product market fit for their startup. Today we're going to talk about a little bit of a different kind of product market fit. It's more of a policy market fit. Because we're going to talk about the startup agenda that the SSA put forth. My name is Amara Cespedes. I'm a project manager at Deep Tech Nation Switzerland, and I would like to say a few words about Deep Tech Nation Switzerland, what we do. It's a foundation that was founded 2 years ago with the goal to improve the framework conditions for Swiss deep tech scale-ups. So what we see is that the ecosystem for early stage is great, but what's really missing is that scale-up stage capital, the scale-up stage talent, and that's where we come in. We want to fix that gap. We see that 96% of all scale-up growth funding is coming from abroad. We want to bring that home. We want to have domestic funding, and we also want to bring the talent flywheel here. We have a lot of technical talent that's here, and that's great, but what's missing is the talent that can scale a company. So if you're more interested about that, there's actually a great session right there behind in the audience. It's going to be about scaling. It's going to be about Project Switzerland. So feel free to join that as well. We also do international promotion, so we really want to make Swiss deep tech shine abroad as well. We do that with Swiss Tech. And last but not least, we are also politically involved with the Swiss Startup Association to really bring the problems from startups into the politics and make the framework conditions better. Sounds really easy, right? So that's what we're talking about today. And I would like to also introduce our panelists. We have Raphael Tolber from the Swiss Startup Association. We have Simon Heberli from SECO, and we have Jonas Bühlmann from Wengerbieli. I will let them introduce themselves and their associations and what they do.
Thank you. Yes, Swiss Startup Association, it originally started 10 years ago. There was a crazy idea in the canton of Zurich about tax, and then and as soon as the law was deleted or not involved, it fell a bit asleep, and we took it over 5 years ago, and the goal was to have a national umbrella organization who takes care about all the different startup issues with a focus on politics. The product market fit was a bit difficult because all the founders, they are not able to finance an organization like this. So the member fee cannot be 10,000, and with all the money we should do politics. So we built first a big community. We have around 2,000 members now, and with that we have now a big united voice to go to Bern and talk to politicians or to the government and try to explain them what we should improve for startups here in Switzerland. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Simon Heberli. I'm from SECO, the State Secretariat for Economic Affairs. What is SECO? It's a huge tanker. I always say, abroad it would be between 4 and 5 different ministries. We do everything from labor and social to, world trade. And what I do is I am responsible for the SME policy of Switzerland within the Economic Promotion Directorate of SECO. So very happy to be here. Congratulations on this panel. And for me, a public-private dialogue is not a courtesy. It's a necessity for better policy.
Yeah, also good morning from my side. I'm Jonas Bühlmann. I'm a tax partner at Wengerbieli, really focusing on tax from the morning until the evening, mainly focusing on startups, venture capital, and also M&A deals. So we see the daily difficulties if it comes to tax from the foundation until the exit. Few words about Wengerbieli. We are a mid-sized law firm located in Zurich and Zug, covering entire Switzerland, full service firm, and also focusing and offering services for startups at the legal side. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to start with you, Raphael. So we see it right here behind. The Swiss Startup Agenda went live. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about the Swiss Startup Agenda? What is it and who wrote it? What are you trying to achieve with it?
Yeah, so the reason why we did it, it was, if you talk to VCs, they have different issues than startups. If you talk to scale-ups, different issues again. If you talk to business angels, another issues. If you talk to pension funds, whatever. So they all have different issues. So the goal was to have the most important, that's all was already a difficult discussion, the most important topics in one paper. We have 20 topics, and we all aligned on that. That are the most relevant topics we need to solve in the next years. In the lead was the Swiss Startup Association, but there were a lot of different VCs, business angels, universities, startup founders, as well as some politicians involved. And at the end of the story, we involved a politician from every party in Switzerland who says, hey, in general, we as the Green ones, we as the SVP, whatever, we support that paper. Of course, maybe not all 20 points. And I think that's now the basis, so that we all aligned on, okay, that are the topics. And the second topic was to really now focus on the topic, what to solve. I mean, it's easy when we talk about product market fit, about, okay, that's the idea. It should be better ESOP conditions, so that's the idea. But, okay, what we need to improve? Do we need to improve it on national level? It's a cantonal level. Okay, do we need to change our law, or do we change just the Verordnung? So that was very difficult, and to have clarity about that, because if you ask in the startup ecosystem, everyone says, yeah, ESOP is not good. So, okay, how to solve? No, nobody knows. So someone needs to take care of this, and that was the reason to bring this all in one paper, to have like a fundament, and now we need to execute all these 20 points on different layers, different laws, whatever. Yeah.
So Simon, maybe you can tell us a little bit why this is relevant to you as SECO. I think you already touched a little bit on it, but maybe you can elaborate why this is relevant, why you care.
That's right. Of course, we do care. I said I'm responsible for SME policy. You may be wondering what does that mean, right? So questions that concern me is how easy or hard is it to do business in Switzerland? How can we reduce administrative burden? How can we be sure that SMEs have access to credit? That's a very relevant question. And then also how to digitalize processes. Maybe can I ask the audience, who of you knows EasyGov, the digital? Ooh. Thank you so much. Because when I ask the same question at the Gewerbeverband, it's 1 out of 10. So thank you, guys. This is also part of our work. We try to make it much easier for you around the clock. And digital, and maybe good news, we are upscaling EasyGov from the current 60 services to more than 300. So stay with us, please. and let me have your feedback if it's useful or how it can be improved.
Jonas, you work with startups every day, so I'm curious, you as a tax expert, do you think that the startup agenda represented the problems well that you see every day, that the founders face?
Yeah, I could just say yes to be polite, but I really say yes because I really think so. Obviously, I look from a tax angle on the agenda, and what I appreciate most, the agenda covers taxes from a holistic point of view. It starts with the most relevant topic, the taxes on the ESOP, the taxes with which founders are faced, with employees are faced. I will come to that later today. In a second stage, it also covers the investor level, also quite important. For example, it's very often unclear whether an individual, Swiss individual, investing in startups can generate a tax-free capital gain. We all know taxes are a simple valuation aspect, meaning taxes leads to a lower valuation for investors, and it also covers the aspect of investment funds. So we have a quite, let's say, old Swiss Withholding Tax Act. Also as a reminder, with Swiss withholding tax rate with 35% is the highest. It's still not a reasonable environment in Switzerland for investment funds, and we also have the same issue if investment funds from abroad are investing in Swiss startups. We have again the withholding tax issue. And last but not least, the agenda also covers the very simple changes which are needed in laws, for example, like the abolishment of the stamp duty or the extension of the tax losses, where also a success has happened in the last few months.
Yeah, maybe I would like to add, because I forgot to comment the startup agenda. It's a very impressive document. And if you represent an authority, this is actually what you wish for, that the sectors organize themselves, they come up with an agenda, and they enter into dialogue. And this is, by the way, what we did. We had an exchange already. Yeah, some of you were there. You were, yeah. and then you exchange, so what's the pain point, and this is the start of a conversation that hopefully then leads to action. Yeah. So congratulations on that paper. It was very useful.
Yeah, congratulations. So I think what we all want is to make Switzerland the startup hub that it deserves to be, right? We have amazing talent, we have amazing startups, but there are some things that are still missing. So tell me, Raphael, where is Switzerland losing ground today? Which two topics of the agenda would you like to highlight today?
Yeah, I mean, yesterday someone asked me, is it so bad in Switzerland? And I mean, it's not so bad. When I talk with my German colleagues about startup regulations, or even the Austrian one or the French one, I mean, it's terrible there. So it's not that bad in Switzerland, but it's always easier to become world champion than staying world champion. So if you're world champion, you start to get a bit easy, you maybe fall asleep, whatever. So I think it's very important that we always challenge the current status. And when we look at the framework conditions, there are some topics related to politics. That's the focus on the position paper. Then there are some topics, society topics. So one topic which is only, it's not a fully focus in the position paper, it's the pension funds in Switzerland. So that's important. There is a lot of money. The pension fund, they invest 0.001% into startups somehow. So very little amount of money. There we need to improve. So okay, we checked on the political side. Can we change something? No, we cannot. So it's a liberal market. The pension fund, every pension fund, we have around 2,000 pension funds in Switzerland. I think they decide by themselves. So we cannot solve it through politics. We need to solve it through society. We need to solve it in direct contact with pension funds, whatever. That's, I think, a very, very big topic in Switzerland. So if we would increase this by a factor of 10 or 20, which is still very low, I mean, that would solve a lot of issues. And the VCs in Switzerland, they don't know what to do with that money. I mean, this is a huge potential. That's one topic. And then to give an example on the other side, about small pieces we need to solve. As a lawyer, you know, it's not tax related, but you know about that. You sometimes, as a startup founder, you do convertible loans. So then you sign the convertible loans, easy, fast track, you get the money, you can work. One point, you want to transfer all the convertible loans into real shares. And there, I don't know, by mistake somehow, the law now says all the investors, they had convertible loans need to be public with all the details in the Handelsregister. So then it's public. I mean, nobody wants this. There is no clear reason why this should be and what's the value for that. Doesn't any sense. So if you're a direct investor, it's not public. If you do a convertible loan and then it's converted into shares, that's going to be public. Now, of course, there are amazing lawyers at Wenger Wieli, other lawyers. They know how to fix it, and now we are in a gray area, and everyone knows how to do with a workaround which is somehow possible to do. So that's a very small topic. Every startup, early stage, who has convertible loans, the lawyer says, hey, this needs to be public, we need to do the workaround that it's not public. So that's a small topic. For sure, there we will find solutions with the government, wherever we need to solve this. Very small topic. If you're not involved in startup, if you're not a founder, you don't know about that. But it's something which is completely useless and we need to solve, hopefully, in the next years. Yeah.
Jonas, as we talked about before, you see a lot of these issues come up every day. Maybe you can tell me how they really play out in practice. What do you see? What happens when startups face these challenges, and what do you do?
Yeah, I would like to point out 3 main challenges we see. First, very obvious, if it comes to ESOPs, an employee gets shares, the tax authorities do evaluation of the shares, and if they get the shares for free, they will be taxed on that valuation, meaning dry income, meaning they are faced with taxes and have no cash. So that's something we very often see, and also if we look cross-border, look to other countries, that's something which is unusual, where we should find a solution. In practice, it's difficult to avoid the dry income if we would like to remain with shares, but that's an issue we should solve. The second thing is, and I also come to that later in more detail, but the administrative burden is quite high, and planning security is difficult, because many rules, if it comes to ESOPs, they are not summarized in a circular or on any publication by the tax authorities. It's simply tax practice. Obviously, we have 26 cantons, 26 different tax practices. Difficult for a startup to understand the rules without any tax advisor, and also to plan in the future. There, we would appreciate having more certainty what really counts now. And the last aspect, and that's something which is very often forgotten, the tax-free capital gain is a wonderful instrument. We have many instruments which lower the tax basis. That is also fine. But if we look on the worst-case scenario, at what rate could employee shares be taxed? That's then really high, and also really high compared to other jurisdictions. The maximum tax rate is 42% in Switzerland, applied by many cantons. We have a social security system, which always comes on the top, is not capped, also something quite unusual in Europe. And then if an employee is fully taxed on the employee shares, he or she is faced with 50% taxes. So half of the exit he will provide to the tax authorities, which is, compared to other countries, simply one of the highest tax burdens.
So Simon, you mentioned before that you're working on EasyGov, you're working on your own things that you're improving. What is the government doing exactly? What can you tell us about your agenda? Not the startup agenda, but your personal or own agenda from SECO.
Yeah, thanks for adding SECO, because I'm not the government, right? That would be scary. So SECO introduced or lobbied, and of course it was the Parliament, because Parliament is our lawmaker, but we lobbied for the Business Relief Act, Unternehmensentlastungsgesetz, active since 2024. You can Google it, look it up if you're bored. It's really trying to say, we have to manage this whole administrative burden, also called bureaucracy, because we understand it's getting a lot. It comes from different sources. It's not just the administration coming up with new ideas. It's Parliament is also popular initiatives that sometimes then lead to heavy additional administrative burden. So that's a priority, right? And for my team, aside the administrative relief and the digitalization of processes, we want to better understand the cycle of businesses. So this is maybe not very popular to say in the startup world, but the bulk of businesses that look for a succession is actually much higher, right, for demographic reasons. So Unternehmensnachfolge, enterprise succession is a big topic for us, but then also, of course, startup and scale up, and that's why we are in a conversation. So concrete reforms that have been delivered recently is the loss carry forward, this period of 7 years where you can register your losses in your tax bill is now extended to 10 years. It has passed all stages, and there was no referendum against it. I think the referendum has ended, the period has ended in end of April. So it's up to the Federal Council now to decide when it enters into force. And I think for startups, that's a good news. Reintegration into Horizon Europe, I think that's highly relevant. So that was a joint effort. EasyGov I have mentioned, and by the way, the pension funds, that was my team lobbying, with the Sozial, what is it, BSV, I don't know in English, those are in charge of the pension funds, so that the threshold is higher, so it's now 5%. So a pension fund could invest up to 5% of assets into ventures, but they're not doing it. So it's interesting, right? The administrative obstacle is removed, and still nothing happens. So what does that mean? It probably means that you have to lobby, right, to change the culture. And you said that in your entering remarks. Yeah. Employee participation, we have taken note. Also, thanks to the startup agenda and the exchange we had, and we have requested a meeting with the director of tax office. And that's my boss who requested it, so our state secretary. So let's see. Yeah. And we will bring private sector, of course, along to get the ear. But you also know that the state cannot tell the cantons what to do. Yeah. that's just another reality. And I'm sure we will discuss this in more detail.
Exactly, that would actually be my follow-up question, right?
Right.
You have the startup agenda on your desk.
Yes.
Why can't you just open it and say, let's implement this and this and that? Why does that not work?
Yeah, I think you know the answer.
I do. I don't know if our audience does.
Yeah, okay. Federalism is a beautiful thing. It's what has made us strong and successful, and we still do believe in federalism. It has a cost. I think we all know that as well. But the understanding of the state in Switzerland, of the federal government, is that we should only do those things the cantons cannot do. Subsidiarität, if you remember your high school years, maybe. And I think that's a pretty thing. But it complicates things, and we see it in education, we see it in taxes, we see it in so many aspects. But I think for reform to be successful, you need to bear in mind three fits. Yeah, the institutional fit, that's the Federal Council and the administration. Then the parliamentary fit, so you need to have your people in parliament, and then the popular fit. And I think we have seen examples where the two first ones, like the institutional and the parliamentary was a green light, yeah. Then it comes to a public vote, like with the tax duty, Stempelsteuer, and then it's rejected by 62.7% of the population. So, and also the opposite can happen, and the opposite is currently happening with the startup visa, where there is no alignment within the administration. So the big art here is to know which battles to pick and where to start working on your three layers. Yeah.
And it also needs a lot of actors, as you mentioned, right? It's the cantons as well. It is so in part the government. It is in part SECO. So maybe can you tell us a little bit? Can you give us an example of this work, right? Like where can you bring the people together? What are your levers that you can pull?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have the possibility, of course, to convey or to mobilize the other federal offices, and we do. Like for the tax agenda, we are going to do that. But let's say also AI regulation is in the making, and SECO is very concerned that it will maybe limit innovation and be maybe not very wirtschaftsfreundlich. So these are things that we do. We can absolutely also mobilize the cantons, and we do that usually through the Volkswirtschaftsdirektorenkonferenz or the tax. They are actually quite organized, the financial guys, and they have a tax group. So yeah, we do that. We're ready to do that. But for me, most important is really to have an open ear for you guys. I mean, for the private sector, because I work at SECO. We care about the economy, and we want Switzerland to remain a place where you can found, but also grow and also stay, so that you don't have to leave, or you don't get just bought by abroad. And what Raphael said, we probably got a bit complacent. When you're always the best in class, you don't really pay attention to what is happening around you. And I think the sense of urgency, it has arrived in my office, but not everywhere else yet. But also not in the population. Sometimes you feel that.
Yeah. Raphael, you actually have two hats on, right? On the one hand, you worked on the startup agenda. You're on the association side that's lobbying for this, but you're also a politician, right? So you know the other side of it as well. You kind of are a little bit part of the government too, in a way. What do you need from the government, or what would you wish? I mean, on any level, not just the federal one, but also the cantonal ones. And what is your experience working with them?
As everyone knows, we have 3 layers. I'm in Parliament in Winterthur, which is the lowest layer. Let's see where I go maybe in the next years. You have the cantons, and then you have the national parliament, you have the national government. And the experience is, as lower you are and as lower you have an issue, it's easier to fix. Mm-hmm. So if you are in your hometown, call the city president and request a meeting, you will get the meeting for sure. Otherwise, he's a very bad president. But in all cases, you will get the meeting, 15 minutes, and you can explain what's the issue. If you contact a local politician and request a meeting, you will get one. of course, if you go with something very finance, don't maybe go to the green ones. If you go to something with environment issues, then go to the green ones. So you need to go to the right politicians, but it basically works. So that's very positive. In Bern, it's more complex, it's bigger. If you are a member of the national parliament, I don't know, you get 100 emails only related to politics every day. So there is a bit more difficult. And what I see now, you mentioned it before, some people like SECO or in Zurich, the Wirtschaftsförderung, they are very open. If you send them an email and say, hey, we need to do a meeting, and we need to just understand what could be possible and what could not be possible, they always reply, they give some inputs. On the other hand, you have some departments in different cantons, they just say, thank you for your email, it's not relevant to us, bye. So, and I think there we need a more open, we need more open people in politics, in the government, because at the end, everyone wants to solve some problems. Some problems are only big for us, then it's maybe too small to solve it for the whole society. In other cases, they are problems which everyone says, hey, of course, we need to solve this, that's useless. So I think it's very important, if you see a problem, reach out to someone, at the SSA, to your local city president, whatever, and try to fix it, because, I mean, that's possible in Switzerland. The rest of the world, I mean, it's quite no chance. And on the other side, we need open people who say, okay, I will listen to your issue, and I maybe can help to fix it.
Yeah. So really openness is the key here from the governments on every level. Maybe you can give us an example of where you were able to work with part of the government and it was actually successful.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way or the easiest way. So everyone, when we talk about politics, everyone thinks about arena and everyone thinks about the public votes we have. In some cases, you just go to the government and the government can solve it without the parliament, and the government can solve it without the public vote. Of course, if we change the constitution, then that's not the way, but in some cases, it's just like André Silberschmidt told me once, you know, in Bern, and he means Bern, the government and the politics, nobody is against startups. But sometimes the people forget that there is a specific issue on the startup level. And in some cases, it's just like, okay, we need to change a few words in a Verordnung, which is done very easily, and nobody says, doesn't work, and everyone is agree on that. And an example on that, there was a Vorstoß from Marcel Dobler about making sure people who get some ESOPs or PESOPs of your startup, they don't need to write down their working hours. So normally, you're obligated to say, okay, start at 8, finish at 5, all your employees. And that was a difficult way, and then the Bundesrat, he said, okay, the parliament don't want it, but if you find a solution on the side of startups and the Economy Suisse and the SGV, KMU Association, together with the workers' party, then we will approve it. And this went, I don't know, it started 2 or 3 years ago. We had a lot of meetings with the Gewerkschaften, and now we have a solution. The solution is not perfect, of course, from our view. That's always, we need to find the consens here. But nobody here heard about. There was no public vote. We have a solution, and hopefully in 2 or 3 years, this issue is solved. It took, at the end, 7 years or 10 years. But finally, the issue is solved on a very easy way. No public vote, no vote in the parliament, and a small issue is solved now.
Yeah, very nice. Jonas, maybe you can walk us through these friction points that you see. I assume that you also have to work or have the pleasure of working with the government sometimes, with the tax authorities. Maybe you can tell us a little bit how these frictions play out in real life.
Yeah, sure. I would like to more focus on the tax authority. We have heard at the level of the government, at law level, also the public votes, which have not always been that successful in the past few years, if we look on tax votes, to be honest. But if we focus on the tax authorities and focus on ESOPs, the principles are in law. There is a circular issued by the Federal Tax Authority just providing the basis. There are many very important topics in practice which are simply not ruled by the government, not ruled by the Federal Tax Authority, meaning the tax authorities have to do the rules. To be very fair, the task of the tax authority is to collect taxes, to generate tax income. So if they are doing the rules, it may not be in favor of the taxpayer. So simple rule. And as I also mentioned before, we have 26 cantons. So far, each canton did their own rules, meaning if we have employees, founders in different cantons, they may face with different tax rules. It's very difficult to understand. It's even not published. A startup needs a tax advisor who simply knows the rule from daily practice. And sometimes even we have some difficulties. To be honest, I don't know all the rules in the canton of Uri, for example, because we do not have a founder on a daily basis in the canton of Uri. Meaning also for the smaller cantons, the case by case is also very difficult for them because they also do not have these cases on a daily basis, must find a solution. To be fair, the cantons, they have initiated some sort of process. They have initiated a working group, especially for ESOPs, employee shares, but that is at the very beginning phase. I would also say it's quite on a low level, so there we could not expect big improvements, meaning what we would appreciate is that the tax authorities would do less rules in the future. We also see it could be easier for the tax authorities if they get more rules. That could be from the federal tax authority. We also have the Schweizerische Steuerkonferenz, where the all cantonal tax authorities have working groups for specific topics, which also issue circular, which also issues recommendation papers. So we would appreciate if there is more harmonization between the cantons, and even more important, that there is more in writing. It gives us certainty. I mean, if they have a rule which is not in writing, we simply don't know how the rule looks like in 2 years. And that's what actually happened the last 5 years. That's the reason that everybody's now filing tax ruling, to have legal certainty that the same rule is still applicable in 2 years, which is quite costly for startups and also quite time-consuming for tax authorities as well as for startups. And last but not least, you only have a possibility to challenge the rules if you have that in writing. How should I challenge rules made just by tax practice if I don't have it in my hands? So that's also a reason that we would appreciate having more on paper, that we could also bring that to the attention of the politics and of the parliament, that there could be some sort of a change. There's also a good example we could mention in Zurich. For example, the government of Zurich simply published a very short paragraph about the taxation of late co-founders. Not in a circular, not in law, but made a rule how late co-founders should be taxed. The Zurich tax authorities have introduced that rule, and that simply made life much better of a late co-founder if it comes to taxes. So some sort of more interaction also by the government for taxes would be appreciated.
Yeah.
And maybe to give a quick example there, I mean, now it's already a ton of information about ESOPs here. I mean, we heard about the national tax office, the cantonal tax office. It's different in all the cantons. Then we have the cantonal conference where all the cantons get together, different issues. I mean, if you as a founder face this, you maybe call the SSA and say, hey, we need to solve it tomorrow because in 2 days I want to give shares to my employees. And I mean, this process takes a long time. And there at SSA, we have people who work full-time on topics like that. I mean, collect all the information, collect all the contacts, then maybe go to the different cantons and say, hey, Canton of Lucerne, there is a new how you say this, sentence or law in Zurich, which is amazing. Are you able to take this in Lucerne, Bern, Thurgau, Schaffhausen, wherever as well? Make them aware of this, and they say maybe yes or no. If they say no, you think about, okay, should we go to the parliament in the canton of Lucerne and bring it in? So reach out to politicians who are maybe close to startups, find them in Lucerne, send them a proposal and say, hey, let's hand this in the cantonal parliament in Lucerne, and this is a ton of work, and the founder has no time to do it. So that's the goal of the Swiss Startup Association, to not focusing on maybe all 20 points same time, but of a few of them, and in some cases it works really great, and in some cases still a bit difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would really like to have this room walk out with some knowledge of how they can also get involved, or what's really happening. How we can move this forward. I think we've all learned about federalism today. But I would like to ask you, Simon, as well, what helps you, right, as SECO? What helps you bring these things into reality? And maybe also what doesn't help you? I assume knocking on your door at 2 a.m. is not going to solve the problem. But yeah, maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'll do that with pleasure. But before that, I want to share a hack with you. But, already I want to hear from the audience. Who knows what the Vernehmlassung is? Okay, because this is one of our fundamental pillars of our direct democracy. If there is a big project, lawmaking or law changing or whatever it might be, even the program, the 4 years program of my directorate, Standortförderbotschaft, it's public. And you can look up Vernehmlassung and you see the different things that are in making, and you can comment on those things. And we cannot ignore it because it is then an official comment. So this is something, Economy Suisse and the big guys, they do systematically. They screen and they know. They're also on the list who get, like a notification that this is coming. So this is definitely something that should, get more embedded, I think, in the dialogue culture, because it's not that we're trying to hide things. They're usually out there in the open, but then you also need to get the feedback. And now you ask me what has helped. Usually when some particular group, comes, our standard reply is get organized. You did that. You got very organized. And then the second comment that we usually give is like, we need hard data. We need to know why you are relevant for this economy. And I think with Deep Tech Nation, we have a very beautiful example of just that. Like if I am speaking about venture capital, I definitely get the figures from your side, right? Where else should I get them? And then organized collectively, I think we see this happening and understand administrative constraints. Raphael just said it, you cannot call with 2 days notice for something that is taking years sometimes. Why is it taking years? Because we are a consens-oriented society and also a consens-oriented state. So yes, it takes longer, but have you noticed that we then don't mend a lot? We don't change regulations once they are in place. And we don't have this effect that Party A is in power for 4 years with their program, and then Party B takes over, and then they change everything. Did you notice we don't do that in Switzerland? This is actually sparing you a lot of administrative burden, so you don't have to adapt every time, right? So this is also a good thing. Yes, we are slow, but then it's really quite solid. What does not help? Special treatment requests are very difficult for us. It's like, why exactly, should we treat some sector differently than another? It can happen if you, again, are of national importance, like there is tourism, like initiatives and also funds and money for that. Hidden agenda is very difficult for me because we always act in a spirit of transparency and openness. And what we do not appreciate very much, and it happens all the time, is when you send a letter directly to Monsieur Parmelin. Listen, it ends up on my table anyway, right, or lower, so he doesn't see it. It's the system will distribute it, and he is likely not in a position to react because usually the detailed competence is with the administration. It's a way to get, our attention for sure, but it's not the most effective way. What you're doing is much more effective.
Thank you so much. Jonas, what in your opinion is moving the needle? What helps, what doesn't, from a tax perspective, from a founder perspective?
Yeah, I think my colleagues Simon and Raphael already summarized it very well. It's really first identifying the problem and really name it very concretely. Also try to find a solution, how that could be implemented. I mean, it's always technical if it comes to taxes, but finally there's always a solution. And to share that in a group, for example, as a Swiss Startup Association, to have more power to find a common denominator and then share that constantly with members of the parliament, with politicians. We also do that actually in the same way as tax advisors, via groups or via direct contacts. I think that's still the best option. It needs some sort of staying power, let's say. It needs some time, but it will for sure lead to the best solutions in practice. What we also do, really tax technical, there are journals published on a monthly basis. We publish their essays, rather tax technical, but we can also point out their specific aspects, specific problems. And these journals are also read by the tax authorities. So that's also a measure, beside the daily contact we have with the tax authorities, to point out specific aspects which could lead to a change in mind by the tax authorities. And these channels are open for all, for founders, etc. So that could be also an instrument.
And last but not least, to you, Raphael. So, what can the people in this room take from this, and what can they do? What are the different levels and also the levers that they can pull?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you have an issue, call us and talk about that. Sometimes there are new issues where we don't know about. Sometimes we already had this, there are issues with the canton about something, and the canton is not acting right. So we call them, and it already helped. Visa get declined, and we call them, and the visa gets approved 2 weeks later. Examples like that. So sometimes we need to connect you with a lawyer to make sure you get what you're in right of. So that's one topic, of course. Just call us. We have people, and we try to help. What we then say is, hey, if you're not a member of SSA, you should become a member. I mean, it costs you 300 francs a year. If you're a member of other associations, it's much more money. But somehow, at the end of the day, we need money to pay our employees. I do it for free. I don't get any salary, but we have employees. They work on that issues. So become a member of SSA. And I would say the third point is get involved in politics. Get involved in politics does not mean you need to choose a party. You can you go in your local city and choose a party and go into politics and change things there, or get not involved in a party, but maybe on LinkedIn make the people aware of the issues, about the problems, propose some solutions. I mean, we see the farmers in Switzerland. They are the strongest organization by far. Mm-hmm. We can discuss if they are the most important one, if it's most relevant one, whatever. But they are very strong. They don't post it on LinkedIn, but if every farmer on his farm puts a poster there and say, we need better conditions for the farmers, you see it every day. Doesn't matter by car, by bicycle, by train, you see that everywhere around Switzerland. And the startup environment is sometimes a little bit too calm. And we need to be louder and explain to all the people about all the issues we have. I come back to my first sentence, the example about pension funds. I say we need more pension fund money in Switzerland into startups. So everyone says, my mother and your friends maybe say, no, that's too risky. My pension fund into startups, that's too risky. We should not do it. So okay, then explain them how it works. The Swiss government invests millions every year into education. Millions, sorry, it's billions. Billions in education. That's super important, very, very important for Switzerland. So we educate the people, we push more money into ETH. There are amazing startups coming out, the spin-offs of ETH. So the startup doesn't find any money in Switzerland. First round, easy, 1 million, 2 million, okay. But then they need 10 million to develop their product. So okay, they get American venture fund, invest into Switzerland. The American says it's amazing, the quality comes out of ETH, it's crazy. We happily invest there. So the VCs, they get the money from the American pension funds. The pension funds don't invest directly in the startup. This never happens. They invest in a big fund of fund, they invest in VCs. So the portfolio is very, very wide. The risk is very low. Of course, there are some startups, they will not succeed, but some others do. We know in Switzerland, the average return in startup investments is around 14%. Higher than real estate, higher than ETFs, higher than obligations anyway. So, and in Switzerland, we just look at it. And we pay money into education, and the American people get the money out of their pension fund with a better return than we do here in Switzerland. So if you explain this, it's a bit complicated. But my mother understands, and she says, oh, okay, that's a bit weird. Okay, maybe we should think about it. So that story, we need to tell it 1,000 times every day, every one of us, in every family meeting, whatever, to make the people aware of. Yeah.
Thank you. Sounds like Switzerland first.
Yeah.
But in this, I think that's a great note to end, and also to kind of instill this urgency, right? We've talked a lot about being complacent and being the number one in so many things makes you a little bit lazy sometimes, right? So I think this is the message that I would love for you to walk out with. Don't be lazy. Be urged. Be urged. There's a lot to do in politics, and as you heard, the doors are open. The doors are open to all of us, to every single one of you. You can talk to us, of course. You can talk to Raphael. I would also like to show you this. So if you're more interested about this SSA Startup Agenda, you can follow this link right here, and also the Deep Tech Nation information platform to hear about things like the agenda, about ecosystem news, about amazing startups, and about amazing events as well. Thank you so much to the panel, and thank you guys for listening, and hopefully bringing some fresh wind into Swiss politics. Thank you.